A rivalry renewed in Columbia at long last. Kansas and Missouri are going to reignite the border war. John Miller of Locked On Mizzou is here. I don't know why it's taken this long, John. Here's my favorite tidbit. These teams haven't met since 2011, which is an abomination in college football. Prior to Missouri's departure to the SEC that ended it, and somehow they couldn't get together for a non-conference game. I don't know why. Who makes these decisions? Until that happened.
Mostly Bill Self.
Until that happened, these two football programs had met every single year since 1919. Prior to 2012, when it wasn't played, they hadn't failed to play a game since 1918. I believe that was the First World War, John.
Oh man, I remember it well. Yeah, it was definitely down the trenches, man. It was tough times, but I gotta say, we pulled it through, as America always does.
Yeah, so let's talk about the actual game. I am more proud of that statistical find on my own part, by the way, than anything I've ever shared on this show. So
it was the longest rivalry west of the Mississippi in college football until it ended all the way back in 2011. So
and
I'm just so interested to see if the players on the field understand what's at stake here.
I fully agree. Study your geography, kids. Kansas and Missouri, just west of the Mississippi. So Missouri gets off to what looked like a pretty good start. Bo Prabula shines. Were they playing a world beater? No. And few teams are at this point in the season. That's why this game is so much fun. This is a measuring stick moment for me. Kansas, through their two games, hasn't played anyone that good. Fresno State and Wagner, but they've looked really good. They have a veteran quarterback. Lance Leipold has been there for a while. They, of course, have my guy, Emmanuel Henderson, brief friend of the program here at Locked On College Football. So they certainly have some talent and experience that I think allows them to be an 8-9 win team in the Big 12 this year. But Missouri is one of those teams, while their schedule and rotation is still favorable, that people look at and say, hey, could they just backdoor their way into the playoff by going against the not the toughest teams all the time?
Missouri makes it, it's through the back door.
Yeah,
the front door. Well, that's closed to Missouri. You got to go through the back door. You see? I'm sorry. What was up with that?
I'm just saying, the schedule is not exactly a bunch of world beaters. Is the phrase that I was
I'd say it's a top
25
schedule, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, that doesn't compare to some of the other schedules perhaps we might see in the Power 4
Missouri
level.
Gets 10 wins there in the playoffs.
That's true. That is very true. But
it's not our fault if Alabama sucks this year. I just want to point
no,
that
it's
out.
not. It is definitely not. You can't control what's going on there with the Crimson Tide. Only Kalen DeBoer can, and I don't know if he can control it
I don't know
at this
if he
point.
has control. That's
he might have lost that. Might have lost that at this point in time. So Missouri and Kansas, this to me is a measuring stick game. It's not a long road trip for Kansas, but it is in Columbia. So little bit of an edge to the Tigers there, who are favored by 6.5 points. Just off the top, John, do you feel confident Missouri goes in and gets this done?
I feel confident. I can't say I'm guaranteeing it or anything like you say. I mean, Jalon Daniels, a good player. It's funny, Jalon Daniels, a guy I occasionally conflate. I occasionally say Jaden Daniels, understandably. Well, that was coincidentally the last time Missouri lost a game at home was all the way back in 2023 to LSU and the Heisman Trophy winner, Jaden Daniels. So coming into Columbia and winning, not an easy thing to accomplish the last 2-3 years or so. So that makes me feel confident. I just think overall, while I have a lot of respect for the quarterback and the coach for the Jayhawks, I just think overall the Missouri roster is pretty obviously more talented. And I just have a tough time finding, for example, like a skill player other than Jalon Daniels that really frightens me as a Missouri fan.
I'd say Emmanuel Henderson should be on that list. Not just because he was on this show. That guy was a blue chip prospect coming out of high school, began his career at Alabama. But certainly for Kansas, I think what we have seen in these non-conference battles where the Big 12 has struggled, or Big 12 or ACC, I should say, have struggled a couple times. You think about Syracuse and Virginia Tech or Baylor. I'm just kind of lumping them together in this conversation because we've had that discussion a lot in the college football space. It's the Big Ten and the SEC against the ACC and the Big 12. The biggest discrepancy that I've seen has been the trench play. Okay, Jackson Arnold didn't light the world on fire with his arm against Baylor. They were just physically enforcing their will. Arnold, a tremendous runner, was able to capitalize on that. They just ran a bunch of RPOs, and Baylor couldn't stop them because they couldn't get a push up front. South Carolina overwhelmed. I just keep crossing up in my Virginia Tech. Yeah. Tennessee played Syracuse, and it was the same kind of thing. But I put those games in my head, and they looked
those
very
games. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. So when you think about the trench matchup here for Missouri, John, do you feel like that is a significant advantage for the Tigers?
Well, frankly, it should be. And really, the biggest question I have is pass protection. I think Missouri, that was the biggest question from week one. If Missouri can clean up its pass protection against Kansas, I have a tough time seeing the Jayhawks pull off the upset. On the other hand, if Missouri cannot protect the passer, well, that's a big deal. I'm really curious to see how Kansas plays this game defensively against Missouri and Bo Prabula early. Do they force him to throw it over the top, or do they force Missouri to sort of do dink and dunk and go 5 yards at a time? That's kind of been the trend in college football, at least through the first, week 0 through week 1 here. I'm just thinking that, up front, especially on the defensive side of the ball, I'm pretty confident Missouri has the advantage there. You flip it the other way, Missouri's offensive line against Kansas's defensive line, I'm relatively confident, but especially pass protection, I think it's fair to question it a little bit at this point.
The guy they're protecting, Bo Prabula, a heck of a start as Missouri's quarterback early in his career. This is certainly a much tougher test for the Tigers' new signal caller. What have you seen from him so far, and maybe what does he still need to prove to show he's the guy that can lead Missouri to the playoff?
Well, what does he have to prove? I mean, do it against somebody that isn't Central Arkansas. But if you're just going to judge him on week 1 against an obviously inferior opponent, I don't know what more you could have wanted to see. In particular, he distributed the ball well. I thought made all the right decisions, all that stuff. Honestly, I don't know how much of the communication up front is on him in terms of pass protection. I assume that's mostly on the center for Missouri. I could be completely wrong there. I mean, really, I'm searching to find negatives for Prabula in week 1. I thought it was interesting you brought up Jackson Arnold. I think that's a decent comparison for Prabula in terms of a guy who can really run the football, and hopefully I think Arnold really benefited from having a much better core of people around him based on Oklahoma just had a ton of injuries up front at the receiving core last year. I think Arnold just mostly benefited from having better teammates around him.
Yeah, I agree. I talked about that in my reaction. Auburn fans loved hearing that, by the way. They were absolutely thrilled with my take in that regard. For the second time today, you couldn't have known I'm going to do this, of course, because of the way that podcast segments get taped, peek behind the curtain. But for the second time today, to my Locked On College Football fans out there, I'm saving this for one of my 5 best bets of the week. That'll be my third segment on Friday's show. So I'm going to hold off on my pick for that particular segment. But, John, the floor is yours for Kansas, Missouri for the first time in 14 years. I detest realignment. I love that it brought back Texas and Texas A&M.
Sure.
I wish this game could have been played sooner. I hope it gets played a lot going forward.
Me too. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And I don't know, were you leading me into a pick there or something like that?
Yeah, go. If you've got a pick, if you don't want to, if it's too early in the week, hey, you do you. But if you'd like to make a pick and put it out there on the record, the floor is yours.
Well, I'm ready to drop them on the table and make a pick quite
let's hear it.
So let's go with it. I mean, I think Missouri wins. The 6.5 points, I don't know that I'm willing to give that. Here's my best bet of this game. I like the under. I really do. I think the total's going to go under. I think just in general right now, the under is the smart bet. I think you can just blindly bet almost any under, in college football. I think you'll have a pretty good return on investment. But in this game in particular, to me, I think you've got a Missouri team that likes to bleed the clock, that likes to take its time, scoring points, and is never in a hurry. And we're early season here, some questions for both teams. I just think the under's the smart play here. I really do.
Yeah, in week 1, unders hit at something like 60%.
I think it was like 67.
Yeah, it was a very really high number, which I heard some podcast hosts were mentioning that offenses weren't going to be firing on all cylinders yet. I don't know who those guys were, but I know that they were definitely out there. I wonder if
listeners of Locked On Mizzou know I'm a big under guy.
Yeah, John the Under Miller,
right.
as he is.
It's an exciting moniker to have. People love me for it, I tell you.
Yes, that is exactly right. So I will have my pick on this game because it is one of my best bets of the week later on Friday. John Miller, Locked On Mizzou. Can't wait for Kansas and Missouri to be back. I appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.